I'm Wendy, also known as Penny. I am the co-host of the Knit1HeartToo podcast, and I would like to welcome you to this Knit1HeartToo tutorial on how to knit a short row heel. Before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. The technique that I use for short row heels and that I think is really the best technique that I've seen is the one detailed in Wendy Johnson's pattern called Detailed Toe-Up Sock. That pattern is available for free from her website at wendyknits.net, and I post the link to that at the very end of the show. It might be helpful if you've never knit a short row heel before, or if you've never knit a sock before, to download a copy of that pattern to follow along. I'm not going to go through every step, just the ones that you need to end up with the short row heel like this on your sock. And it's mentioned at the top of the show, but the sock that I'm working on is an Aquaphobia sock by Crystal Flanagan, and I'm working with Into the World Pakoku sock in the Muse colorway. And although I'm knitting these two at a time, you certainly don't have to knit yours two at a time. So I hope that this tutorial is helpful, and enjoy your sock knitting.
The first thing you need to do is count the number of stitches that you have on each side of your sock. Half of the stitches of your sock are going to be used to turn the heel. This particular sock that I'm knitting, which is an Aquaphobia sock, a free pattern on Ravelry, has 72 stitches total. So there are 36 stitches on each side, and I will be working on the bottom of the foot side, these 36 stitches. Now if you're using Wendy Johnson's instructions, they're written as if you have 30 or 32 stitches on the side of your sock, but they're really easy to adapt. Instead of following along and knitting her counts, you need to follow the more general instruction, which is as you're picking up and wrapping your stitches on either sides of the heel, you just want to knit to the last stitch before the end, or the last stitch before the wrapped stitch starts. So let's get started with that. To begin your short row heel, once you've reached the back side of your sock, I generally start my short row heel about 2 inches from the end of my heel on my foot measurement, so I've knit my sock to the appropriate length. The first step is that you're going to knit across these stitches on the bottom of the foot until you come to the very last stitch. So now I've knit across all of the stitches on the bottom side of my foot up until the last stitch. Now there are several different ways that you can wrap and turn a stitch. I'm going to demonstrate the way that Wendy Johnson uses in her pattern. It's generally the way that I do it, but you can use any wrap and turn method that's comfortable to you, and it will work just as well. So I've come to just before the last stitch on the bottom. I'm going to bring my working yarn to the front of the work as if I was going to purl, and then I'm going to slip that last stitch onto my needle and wrap the yarn around. Then you will see when I turn my work, now I have that last unworked stitch right here, and the yarn is wrapped around it. I'm going to slip that unworked stitch onto the needle without working it and purl the next stitch. And you will see when you look that this wrapped stitch, this stitch now has a wrap around it and purl into the next stitch. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue to the other side by purling across the bottom of my sock. So now I've purled across all of the stitches on the bottom of my sock, and I'm at the very last stitch, and in order to wrap this stitch I'm going to take the working yarn and put it to the back of the work, and then slip this stitch as if to purl and bring this yarn around the front, and then I'm going to turn the work and you will see, and I'm going to slip that unworked stitch back onto the other needle, and you will see that I have the yarn now wrapped around as I knit the next stitch. So there you go. There you can see the wrap right there. Now I'm going to continue working in this manner to the next side, knitting across all of the stitches on the bottom of the sock. Now this is the second time I've knit across, and you can see I have my first wrap stitch here. So I'm going to wrap the next stitch, and again I'm going to bring the working yarn to the front of the work as if I'm going to purl, slip that stitch purlwise, and wrap the stitch around to the back, wrap the working yarn around to the back, and then I'm going to slip that stitch. And you'll see as I purl into the next stitch to go back the other direction, I've created a wrap. So now I have two wrapped stitches, and I'm going to work back in purl across to the other side. And now I've purled across the back side for the second time, and you can see my first wrapped stitches right here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap the next stitch. I'm going to put my working yarn in the back of the work, slip as if to purl, wrap to the front of the work, turn, slip the unworked stitch, and you can really clearly see the wrap there, and knit the next stitch. So now I have two wrapped stitches, and I'm going to work across again and knit. And I'm going to go back and forth like this, continuing to wrap each next stitch next to the other wrap stitches until I have 11 wrapped stitches on either side of my work. And the reason the number is 11 is because I want to have 14 stitches remaining in the center of this work for the point of my heel. The reason I choose 14 as a number is because 14 stitches are the amount of stitches that I originally cast on for the toe of my work. So I like the heel and the toe to be symmetrical. You can make any number be the center of your sock as long as you do an even number of wrapped stitches on either side of it. And the wider the back of the heel you make, the wider the heel will be, the narrower you make, the narrower the heel will be, and it's really up to you. But in my case, I'm going to do 14, so I'm going to wrap 11 stitches here and 11 stitches here. And once that is done, I'll begin working the short row heel by picking up those wraps and knitting short rows across to make the top of the heel. So here I am. I have wrapped 11 stitches on either side of the center of my heel, so that's 22 wrapped stitches, and I have 14 live stitches remaining on the needle. That is how wide I want my heel to be, the back of my heel. I usually make it to coincide with how wide the toe was that I cast on. I believe this was a 14-inch. So now I'm ready to start turning the heel and picking up these wrapped stitches. One of the reasons I like Wendy Johnson's pattern so much is because she recommends double wrapping the picked up stitches on the edge of the heels. She thinks that it makes for less chance of holes in the side of your socks, and I totally agree. I really have had no problems with holes or gaps in the wrapped stitch area on any socks that I've done using double wrap. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So we're going to go ahead and knit across the 14 stitches of the heel, the live stitches. Until we come to that first wrapped stitch. And that's the wrapped stitch right there. You can see the wrap around it. I'm going to slip my needle into it as if to purl and pick it up. And then I'm going to slip my left hand needle under the wrap and put it up onto the needle. And then I'm going to knit those two together through the back loop. So now I've knit 2 stitches together through the back loop. Now I'm going to take my working yarn and bring it to the front of the work, and I'm going to go ahead and slip that next stitch again, wrapping the yarn around it, turning my work. So now my working yarn is in the front. I'm going to slip that off the needle, and I've wrapped this wrapped stitch. You can see the 2 wraps around it. And then I'm going to go ahead and purl back across my live stitches to the first wrapped stitch on the other side. So here I've purled across all of the live stitches, and I'm now at the first wrapped stitch on the purl side. I'm going to go ahead and slip that onto my needle and pick up the wrap with my left needle and slip it on to the stitch. And then I'm going to insert the tip of this needle in through the back of the loops like that, as if I were doing purl 2 together. And then I'm going to bring my yarn to the back of the work, slip the next stitch, and wrap it and turn the work. So just like on the right side of the work, you'll see that I now have a double wrapped stitch on this needle, and then I'm going to work across the live stitches again until I come to my next wrapped stitch, and this will be the first wrapped stitch that we come across that is double wrapped. So here I am, I've knit across my live stitches again, and I've come to my first double wrapped stitch. I'm going to treat it the same way I did the single wrapped stitch, by slipping that stitch as if to purl and lifting each of the 2 slipped stitches onto the needle. Then I'm going to insert the needle in the front and knit them all together through the back loop. So now I've knit those 3 stitches together, and then I'm going to bring my working yarn forward and slip the next wrapped stitch, wrap it, and turn the work, slipping this back onto the needle. And again, you will see that this now has 2 wraps, the wrap from the initial decreases and the second wrap as we go back to pick them up. And I'll purl back across to the purl side. So here I am at my first double wrapped purl stitch. You can see the 2 wraps right there. I'm going to go ahead and slip that stitch as if to purl and lift up each of the 2 wrapped stitches onto the needle with my left needle. So now I have 3 stitches there, and I am going to go ahead and purl them together. Purl 3 together, and then put the working yarn in the back of the work, slip that first stitch, wrap the yarn, turn the work and slip it. So now I have double wrapped my next stitch. And you continue working in this manner until you have picked up all the wraps on the sides of your heels. And when you're finished with all of your stitches, you will end up with a short row heel that looks like this. See, it's on the back of my sock. The seams on the sides will be nice and tight, no gaps. And that is how you do that.